Joni was rushing to a meeting at the office and got caught in a traffic jam. 2 seconds to make a decision, and he's already driving around to avoid the jam. A text message arrived on Joni's phone. Distracted from the road, he began to pull out his phone, which was perpetually lying around in the car, littered with all sorts of things. The next second, he hit the brakes hard. There's a little girl about 6 years old in front of the hood of his car, and to his right is a traffic light that's been going red for about 10 seconds. Joni got out of the car and ran to the hood. The girl was lying on the ground with no sign of blood. "Hey, why aren't you looking where you're going?" he said to the girl, shaking her a little by the shoulders. Joni took the girl in his arms. Good thing it was the back of the yard and no one was outside. And where did the girl come from? It was like she grew out of the ground. Joni put the girl in the back of the car. She was unconscious. "Hey, what are you doing? Come on, wake up. I have to go to a meeting. Do you hear me?" He shook her, frightened. The girl began to open her eyes and looked around. "Hello," the girl said very quietly. "Well, hello. Well, you scared me. Listen, how are you? Are you okay? No pain anywhere? Can you walk yourself home?" said Joni quickly. "Yes," the girl continued in a quiet voice. "Do you live around here somewhere?" the guy asked. The girl nodded. "Where's your mother?" kept asking Joni. "Mama's far away," the girl said calmly and quietly. "Is Mom at work? Is Dad at home?" began Joni. "Uncle, don't be angry, don't swear, but don't tell Daddy or he'll get angry," the girl said in a voice that was already quite strong. "I don't have time for your father right now. Okay, that's it, let's go home." Joni started to help the girl out of the car. The girl reached into her coat pocket and started looking for something, then held out her little fist to Joni with the words, "Mama said that when people get mad, they need something to give. So here." She opened her fist, and there was a big button with 2 holes in it and a smile painted on it. Joni quickly slipped the gift into his pocket and shouted goodbye. "Be careful out there. There are plenty of fools on the roads." The girl ran to the other side of the road, and Joni pressed the pedal to the floor and hurried to his meeting. As he ran into the office, he took off his jacket with one hand while the other searched the folder for the report he needed. He wasn't late, he still had 5 minutes to spare. He walked over to his colleague, Rose. His heart was pounding. He asked, "Well, how's the boss today? In the mood?" Rose replied that she hadn't seen him since this morning, but from the rumors in the office, everything was fine. Joni is an ordinary employee in one of the offices. He has a big day today. He is being considered for the position at this meeting, and they are planning to promote him. Joni really wanted the position. It's a new lease on life for him. He won't be an ordinary employee, but a manager. The meeting began. Something was decided, debated, asked and answered. Everything went on as usual. Joni's boss was an advanced man. He often went abroad to study, and he liked to have advanced people in his staff. After the meeting, the boss turned to Joni. "I'll decide on your candidacy tomorrow. I need some time. You have prepared well today. I want to look at your reports again in peace." Joni calmly walked out of the office. The position was his. He knew it. He had already seen the draft order for his appointment. His colleague Rose had sent him a picture of the order the day before. Rose was her own person in every department of the firm, and, of course, her long romance with Joni kept them both on their toes. Already completely calm, he walked to his office. "Joni, how are you?" someone called out to him. "More than fine," replied Joni, happily going over everything that had happened at the meeting in his head. The workday was over. Joni got ready to go home. It got warmer outside, so he threw his jacket on the back seat of the car and rushed home. No one was waiting for him at home. He is used to being alone. He is more comfortable that way. On the way home, he stopped at a store, bought himself everything he needed to celebrate his little victory. At the cash register, he started to pay and realized they had forgotten all the money in his jacket. He asked him to put his purchases aside. He ran to the car, grabbed his jacket. At the checkout, he stuck his hand in his pocket, and the first thing that came into his hand was a button. He looked at it and thought, smiling, lucky button of some kind. Then he pulled out his wallet, paid, took the check, and headed for the car. In his mind, he had already begun to celebrate his appointment. All evening, sitting in front of the TV, Joni spun that button and thought all about the girl. He remembered how his grandmother had raised him, because his mother, leaving little Joni to his mother, had gone off to conquer the big city and never returned. The next morning, Joni got ready for work as usual. He took his time today, because everything had already been decided. As of next week, he was no longer just an ordinary office worker. He was already the boss. Today, he decided to drive through the yards again, in case he would meet this girl. He even bought lollipops with smiley faces at the cash register. On his way out of the store, Rose called him. "Hi, Joni, I didn't call you last night. Listen, after you left the office yesterday, my boss called me in and said he was considering me for the job of department head. I was up all night. Joni, did you get dumped or something?" Joni listened and remained silent. This was clearly not the turn of events he'd anticipated, as if he'd been doused with cold water. "Rose, what are you talking about? Are you in charge?" The guy replied in surprise. "That's what I'm telling you. I think they've already got orders for you, and here I am. But he started it for me yesterday. You have a good record. You understand what responsibility means. And as a manager, you have good skills," said the colleague. "Skills? Rose, what are you talking about? I have a meeting with him this morning. I'm going to be scheduled. Are you trying to ruin my mood in the morning?" replied Joni, and hung up. Joni stood and thought about everything she had just told him. Well, what if it's true? She's so pushy. Suddenly there's no order, Joni thought as he got in the car. As he approached the rendezvous point, he slowed down at the traffic light. He searched with his eyes for where the little girl might be. He had to park and get out of the car. He walked 5 yards, and behind the bushes, he saw a playground. On the swing, a little girl was swinging something. Not far away, a man was sitting. From afar, Joni thought the man was asleep on the bench, leaning on the back. The man picked up a bottle of beer from the ground, opened it, and started yelling to the girl. "Hey, let's get home. I'm freezing to sit here while you walk around." The girl obediently stopped the swing, picked up her doll from the swing, and walked toward the driveway. The man got up and followed the girl unevenly. Joni silently watched everything that was going on, like something out of a movie. He wanted to stop the man and reprimand him, but Joni stood stock still, just watching them go into the entryway. He came to his senses that he was actually on his way to work, and that's where he followed. He couldn't get the scene he'd seen this morning out of his head. He even stopped to think about Rose's phone call and his promotion. That girl, the doll on the swing, that button. "Joni, your boss wants to see you," came over the phone. "Got it. I'll be right there," he answered quickly as he went. "Joni, do you know that I think you are a very efficient employee? Your department has these excellent numbers. I took a closer look at the report yesterday. I like your approach, but I decided to take my time. I want to keep an eye on your department, and consequently, you. That's why we're not going to give you a promotion order today. Do you hear me?" his boss said. Joni, already distracted from the morning, flew somewhere far away from his body into space. "Yes, I hear," he replied, after a while, confused. "You wanted to watch me work some more. Don't be angry," he said into the void, stood up, put the candy he wanted to give the girl on the table. "Mama said whoever's angry should be given the good stuff," Joni continued. "Joni, are you all right?" the supervisor asked, and thought to himself, This is more than a strange thing to do from a man who claims to be an executive. Yeah, it's okay, said Joni, and headed for the exit. What a day, thought Joni, sitting at his desk. All was well, and yet all turned out well. Rose sat across the table from him, smiling snidely when Joni looked in her direction, and Joni was already thinking that she was actually going to be in charge instead of him, and it made him sad. The day passed in thoughts and suspicious glances, each time Joni caught himself thinking that it was not for nothing that he did not trust women after all. In the evening, he decided to drive through that yard again, and if he could, he would walk to the man, apparently the girl's father. After work, he got to the yard. It was already dark. No one was there. He walked over to the bench where the drunk man had been sitting that morning. A woman with a dog came out of the entryway. Joni wanted to ask her about the girl, but realized in time that it was too suspicious to take an interest in the life of an underage girl whose mother is nowhere to be found, whose father is apparently an alcoholic. He sat down on the bench and realized that his whole plan was somehow incomprehensible to begin with. Why had he come here? What did he want to do? A second woman came up to the driveway, and they began discussing something loudly. Oh, that man in apartment 14 got drunk again this afternoon. I took Sally to my place. Elizabeth from apartment 17 called the police, and they took him away, thank God. At least the girl's getting some rest. It's about time they took away his parental rights, her other neighbor answered. And I hear the screaming in the daytime. I knew it was Jacob singing. Feel sorry for the girl. She has suffered. He's always drinking, and he's always having strange guests at his house. You don't say. When I remember Maria, she was so nice and decent. She would always help me if anything happened. And this goofball didn't behave like that in front of her. But you see how it is in life. The disease doesn't ask how old someone is. Oh, don't tell me. God forbid that for anyone. Joni listened, and the picture of what was happening was becoming even more incomprehensible than he had painted it yesterday. He came home in a depressed mood. A strange emptiness had formed. After all, she's a nobody, he thought to himself. And how many children all over the country live with parents like that? They ruin kids' lives. All night long he slept badly. It was the girl, the traffic jam, or the boss talking together with Rose in his head. Angry, he got up, drank half a glass of cognac, and lay down on the couch in the hall. He slept that way until morning. He got ready for work reluctantly. The story wouldn't come out of his head. He took his jacket from the coat rack, put his hand into the pocket, and pulled out the button, looked at it. Mom said, "Whoever's angry should be given good," he said aloud. Why that phrase doesn't come out of my head, I don't understand. He went to work. Rose loudly proclaimed to the whole office that as soon as she became manager, she would bring a case of champagne. Joni watched this circus spectacle and realized that it was time to look for another job. To work under the supervision of an ex is a dubious pleasure. After lunch, he took the afternoon off, saying he needed to get some household chores in order. A thought occurred to him this morning. He received an email from his boss asking him to prepare another report for this week, and he had to defend it again. Ouch. I'll do it later. It's only Wednesday. Especially since he took time to think about it. Maybe this is my last chance, Joni reasoned to himself. Yes, after all, it's not the only company in town. If they don't hire me as manager, I'll look for a new job anyway. And now I'm not going to get upset before time. Solve problems as we get them. Joni got into his car and took a familiar route to the yard where the girl lived. On the way, he stopped at the store, bought all kinds of food, sweets, fruit, hoping to somehow brighten up the life of little Sally. He walked up to the front door and rang the intercom, dialing the number 13 at random. The other side of the intercom answered. "Good afternoon," he said into the intercom. "I'm a representative of the volunteer movement Do Good," Joni began, making it up as he went along. "I've brought a bag of groceries for the family in apartment 14. Can you tell me when they'll be home? No one's answering." So there's no one there, a woman's voice answered. What about groceries? Insisted Joni. The door was opened. Joni walked quickly up to apartment 13. The door was already opened. On the threshold stood the woman who had walked the dog last night. It's the first time your volunteers have decided to help. How many times have we written to various authorities, and when we don't have to, you're right there, the woman began indignantly. Can you tell me when the tenants of apartment 14 will be by? Joni was persistent. They won't be home anymore. Sally was taken by her aunt today. And that's it. The father's being deprived of his parental rights. Enough to spoil the girl's life. He's fed up with everyone in the house. It's easier for the whole building to breathe. The woman was indignant. What am I supposed to do? After all, a whole package was brought in. People collected, bought, brought to us, Joni began to say perplexedly. The aunt doesn't live far from here. You can even walk there. Only I can tell you the number of the house and the street. I won't tell you the apartment. Wait for them in the yard. Ashley often walks with Sally. Go ahead. Write, said the woman. Joni started to quickly write the address on his phone. Then he ran as fast as he could. When he reached the yard, he saw Sally walking on the playground. She was swinging a doll on the swing, just like yesterday. That's right, a doll. I should have bought some more toys. What about chocolates? Cussed Joni to himself. He suddenly felt uncomfortable approaching Sally. He looked around, looking for the aunt. There was a decent-looking girl sitting on the bench near the swing, not looking like an aunt at all. She was talking excitedly to someone on the phone. Is there any way you could not traumatize the child through all the instances without her? God, I couldn't take her away from her father, and now I have. So now you can't leave the child alone. Joni waited for her to hang up and then walked closer to her. Good afternoon. Ashley? He asked. Yes, who are you? Ashley wasn't really surprised. My name is Joni. I'm a representative of the volunteer movement Do Good. Sally's family was on the database of the disadvantaged, so I brought groceries, and here's a package. He held out the package to Ashley. Well, Sally, you're in charge of her now, aren't you? Ashley looked at the package, at which point Sally walked over to them. Joni turned to her. Hello, he said, smiling. Oh, Uncle, hello, the girl replied. Sally, do you know him? Asked Ashley. Yes, we met yesterday, replied the girl. The day before yesterday, Joni corrected her. Those were the circumstances. He began to justify himself. I knew right away that you're not a volunteer. What kind of spectacle are you making here? What do you want? Wondered Ashley. I don't need anything, Joni replied guiltily. I really just wanted to give Sally this package and make sure she was okay. Joni handed the package to Ashley. That's it. You've looked and handed over the package, interrupted Ashley abruptly. Thank you, Sally. Let's go home. Ashley, Sally began. Don't swear. Mom said whoever's angry should be given good. The girl reached into her coat pocket, but found nothing there. Joni quickly slipped his hand into his jacket pocket and gave the girl a button, given to her by herself. The girl smiled, looked at the button, and handed it to Ashley. Ashley took the button and turned away so Sally wouldn't see her tears. Let's go home, my good one, she said quietly and calmly. Sally waved her hand at Joni and said quietly, Uncle, I'm out of buttons. I went across the street to pick them up, but my father won't let me go there, Sally said, walking away from Joni. Oh, my name is Joni. You can call me Joni, just not Uncle, he laughed. The girl waved her hand in agreement and followed her aunt's hand. Good day, Joni thought, and walked toward his car. At the end of the week, Joni prepared a progress report. He wasn't bothered by the situation. He even joked with his colleagues that he would stay with them forever, even if he didn't get promoted. Rose tried to joke with Joni that he would have to put up with being her secretary. But all of that suddenly didn't matter. Everything went on as it had the last time. Questions, answers, clarifications, opinions. Joni, tell me, what do you think? Are there events that can radically change a person or his life? The boss suddenly asked out of the blue. I think so. Certainly. Every event leads to some kind of change, Joni replied calmly. As you said last time, whoever is angry needs to do good. Does that seem right? Does that lead to change? The warden went on. Joni was once again dragged out of his body into the vastness of space. He who is angry must get good. That's the principle, Joni replied. Well, integrity in our work is a valuable quality. So does it lead to change? The supervisor persisted. In my case, it worked. And in yours? Joni took the initiative and looked at his boss. Well, at any rate, it didn't leave me indifferent. I thought then and realized that there was some philosophy in it, the chief began to reason. It's a very good move, which I hope you as department head will be able to bring to mind. The chief held out the order of appointment to Joni. Sign and proceed with the transfer of cases. Rose will take over your cases. I'll let her know now. Oh, and yes, thank you for the candy for my son, the supervisor added, smiling. After work, Joni drove along the familiar road. Just on the way, he turned off at a little store. He was bringing Sally a present. He was bringing Sally a small bag of goodies. And perhaps it was no accident that fate had brought him together with Sally and her aunt. Perhaps it will lead to something. Something.